Hi, my name is Cheryl Arts, and I am the owner and founder of Willow Roots, which is a healing center, retreat center just outside of Grand Bend in southwestern Ontario. And I thought I would come on here and just start to share some of the wisdom. I think, there's a lot of people going through so many things at this time. And I just wanted to share some of the things that were helpful for me going through many of the different things that I've gone through to come to where I'm at. And so I'm presently a teacher and practitioner of alchemical healing, which is a really beautiful energy healing modality that came into this world by Nikki Scully. And so you can look her up on our website. And yeah, and through my journey, through my healing journey, I have gone through a lot of different things. And so I wanted to touch on today is what many people call the dark night of the soul. And this is when, that floor is just kind of ripped out from underneath us. And it's that tower moment. We have those tower moments that happen that really shift our lives and that can take us into a really deep, dark space. And there might not be actually, a very big, significant event. It could be that you just go into this deep depression, but sometimes, or most times, it's triggered by types of illness, whether it's physical or mental illness, or maybe it's by betrayal or divorce or something that's happened to a family member. Perhaps it's a death of a loved one, or you lose your job, or, there's so many different things that can take us in this place. And it doesn't have to be significant. And so for me, it was a concussion. And that was back in 2015. And so I remember the day clearly. It was November 1st, 2015. And I hit my head on the ice playing ringette, which is something like hockey. And, at the time, it didn't really impact me too much. But I noticed that I had a migraine afterwards, and I was very nauseous, and it didn't stop. And so for me, I was diagnosed with mild acute brain injury, so a concussion. And, so it took me a little bit to really understand that. And you never know where you're going to land. And for me, I prayed that I would just get back up on my feet. I've had multiple concussions, get back up on my feet and go back to work. And that just wasn't happening. I kept trying to go to work. That wasn't happening. And what ultimately ended up happening is that I really lost everything in my life. Every piece of who I was basically disintegrated. So, it started with not being able to go to work, but then not being able to function as a mother and as a wife for my family. I had three young kids and a husband, and so not able to work. So lost that whole piece, and I was very physically active. So I wasn't able to play the sports I love. I was, coaching a volleyball team. I was playing on that team. I couldn't play volleyball anymore. Couldn't socialize with friends. I was very social. Couldn't do that, and so I really lost. I lost so much. And when I was in that space, it didn't take me long, and I went to a pretty dark place. I went to a place where I didn't know if I was going to come out of it. And I remember my husband saying to me, you need to get some help. You need to get some therapy. And I don't know if you realize how deep you are until you have to pull yourself out. And those of us around us, those of us who are loved ones who are witnessing that can see it. And if you have someone around you asking you to find some help in some way, it's time to listen. It's really time to listen. So I'm grateful that my husband was gently nudging me into that space. And I remember, just wanting that life back. I wanted that Cheryl Arts that existed on October 31st, 2015. I wanted her back. And, you know, and little did I know I was never going to get her back. And so there's a few things that need to happen. And if it's something significant like this that's happened to you, where your life has completely shifted, one of the pieces that helped me was that I was told that it's okay to grieve. It is a death. It's a process. It was a death of who I was, my identity in so many different ways. And so one of the first pieces is that it's okay to grieve. And actually, it would be very healthy to grieve. And so, it took that permission. So I give you permission to do that. And so that was a really, really big piece. Another piece was asking why. And so this is something I did almost immediately. And here's the thing, we're all intuitive beings, and I think we probably know in our heart of hearts why. But I remember getting down on my knees and begging God, creator, source, whoever would listen, because I wasn't very spiritual at the time that this happened, and saying why? Why me? Why this? What's the purpose in this? And for me personally, I knew it was to leave my job. And I knew that had been coming for a few years. And I'd been getting the messages and ignoring them. I'd had a couple other critical health things that had come up in the year before. And I remember saying, yep, I'm good. I'm going to slow down, blah, blah, blah. But in my heart, I knew that I needed to leave and I wasn't doing it. And I was scared. So fear holds us back from where we're supposed to be going. So I believe that spirit intervened, and my concussion was my true wake-up call. And so I knew deep down, it took me a little bit to really accept it. So even knowing, though, why. So asking the why, that's really, really important. Asking the why did this happen? Why is, what's in it? What needs to happen out of this? And so even though I knew my why, I still wasn't able to make that move. I still wasn't able to let it go. And fear was a big piece of it. And so the healing work that I've done, the healing work that I now do, alchemical healing, really helped me. So it resonated with me. And again, not very spiritual. And I stepped in this work. I was a big critic of it at first, and noticed some changes that were starting to happen as I was having sessions, which is a pretty big deal in the concussion world, especially if you've had it for like 6 months or more and it's not seemingly healing. So it was really powerful. So I remember going to an alchemical healing weekend where I learned the modality, and the messages were clear for my spirit guides, like, you need to quit. And so at that point I was on disability, and I remember I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's quit. And so when that happened, it made space. And so even though I still felt fear, I wasn't sure where I was going. So there's some reason for why you're going through what you're going through. If you're going through this massive transition, these really hard times, ask yourself. And sometimes we have to get to like the lowest point before we do something. So if you are getting all these hints about something, so if you're listening to this and you haven't hit this, dark night of the soul yet, and you're afraid, if it's truly your path, there's going to be something that comes in that really shifts and gets your attention. So I always encourage people to act on what they're getting now. So that's one big piece. The other thing I want to offer, and it depends on your belief, but I believe we've had many past lives and that we are truly spirit. We're spirit, we're souls. And we come here and have this human incarnation. And with that, we actually choose the life that we're that we're living. And you'd be like, Cheryl, why would I choose this, ... And I agree with you. I mean, why would you choose that? But it is for our soul's evolution. It is for us to have these human experiences, to have these lessons, incarnate, so that our souls can evolve. And that's really important, because we can't do that when we're on the spirit side. Here in human bodies, there's emotion, right? And there's a whole range of emotions, which we don't really have on the spirit side. So we come here. So before we incarnate, before we, choose our parents, we create our contract. We create the things that we're going to experience. And, it's worked out in detail. And so, thinking about it from that perspective, might give you, just a different way to look at this and a different way to move through it. And so by asking yourself, what is the lesson in this? What is this meant to teach me? How am I meant to grow from this? What is the purpose of this? And so asking those questions and listening. And when we start to grasp those lessons and when we start to like move forward from where we're supposed to go, things will shift for us. Things will move. We will move out of that space. And so it's, it's part of our innate process too, to go in dark and deep every once in a while, especially through the winter time here. I live in northern hemisphere in Canada. So we get the snow, we get the cold, and it gets dark. And so we kind of go into ourselves too. And when spring happens, it's just like this fresh new cycle where there's brand new life, where there's creativity, and there's a lot of different energy. And so if you can see it from that perspective too, that we move from these cycles, we go kind of into this dark place, but on the other side is a rebirth. We come out of it and we come into a really beautiful place. And so what are we birthing as we go deep and dark? So it's another piece to think about in this space as we go through some of these harder things in our life. And the last thing I want to share with you is that we are creator beings. So we create what we think about, we create what energy we put ourselves in or around. So, the things that we're watch, what we read, who we talk to, we're all energy. And so if you want to manifest different from where you're at, you want to manifest more light, more abundance, more flow, more peace, then start to bring those things into your life. Take out the darker things that are not serving you. So I'll give you some examples. So for me, I was just having this discussion with a client. I used to love reading drama, and even real life, like murder cases, and like watch CSI and all of these different things. And those are really dark. And, so your mind picks up on that. And it's not necessarily a positive and light energy. And so a number of years ago, I was like, okay, no more. No more. I'm going to start actually reading books. I started reading nonfiction books about how to how to improve my life. So I think I started with, Louise Hay and some really beautiful books that way. So, or even like lighter fiction that wasn't so dark and dramatic. And the things I'm watching on TV, I'm very mindful of what I'm watching, what I'm like putting in my body, what am I listening to? If I'm around people that are just gossiping, I would step away from that, right? And so it's all of those things. And so the biggest piece of that is what we run through our minds and what we think about. And so what we think about, we manifest, we bring it in. And so we want to be thinking about and manifesting what we actually want. And so we need to be careful on what we're saying, the words we're using. And so for instance, say I was talking about my concussion, I would say I'm healing from my concussion instead of owning like, oh yeah, so you want to be clear and you want to be real. So you can't fake. So back in my darkest days, I had like migraines, like a 9 out of 10 migraine with pain. And so if I said, oh yeah, I'm great, lie, total lie. But I could say that I'm trying to heal my concussion. And so if you try to say, you're talking to somebody and you're like, yes, I have this brain injury and it's a concussion and migraines and, just go on and on and on about how terrible it is, you are actually manifesting more of that. So there's like this common ground, or there's like a place in the middle of that where we can say things that are real that, you can say, oh, I'm just not feeling so good today. So the universe feels so good. but doesn't hear the not. So, ways we can describe things, to bring about what we actually want to create, and, think about where we want to go. And I did dream boards, and I wrote out my manifestation list, and there's so many great things, and then that I'll likely get into as we work here, and I share more of what my experiences are in healing. But that's one last thing I can offer you. So a couple of things here, understanding why this happened, getting kind of to the root of it. What was the purpose of it? What is the lessons around it, right? Why did we choose this? There's something there. Maybe there's a bit of karma involved. So, maybe you have to release some karma. And that's really important too. And just remember that it's part of a cycle, and that, inviting yourself to come out of that cycle, come back into that rebirth, into a better place. So anyways, that's it for today. I just wanted to share this little piece, and because I know a lot of people are going through some really tough times at the moment. And so sending you all love and gratitude. If you want to find me, you can find me on my website at willowroots.net. And you can also find me on Instagram and on Facebook at Cheryl Arts. So much love and gratitude, and thank you.